Okay, so it looks like we got one person in here. I don't expect this to be a huge viewership. This was kind of a last minute thing, and I was going to do it anyways, so I thought I might as well record it for people who wanted to see. Recently, over in one of the groups, I started doing mentorships, and one person, more than one person, but one person is painting a red dragon, and I was trying to explain how to do scales and stuff like that, and it was just going to be a lot easier to show it at this point, so I said, you know what, I'll just make it a video, and I'll do that. Tried a few different things. Dragons isn't something I paint a lot. I have painted a few, at least, and I don't know, it's super popular with people, so you kind of have to do them. Hopefully everybody can hear me fine whenever you watch this. So talking about dragon scales, this is part of the Dragons Dueling Dragons Dance of Death. There we go, Dance of Death from Last Bones Kickstarter. And so I'm just going to be working on this scale part. I'm not actually painting this model. This is just an example. And then if we get to it, probably I'll cover the wing here and what we're going to do for that. So we're going to do a red dragon. I'm going to use the Pro Acryls. You can use whatever paint you've got. If you've got Reaper, if you've got Pro Acryl, if you've got Vallejo, whatever you've got. You just really need a range of reds here. Up to yellow. Something bright. This is an ivory. And then I base coated super dark red. So this is actually a red mixed with just a little bit. Sorry, I had a sticky note here that I need dropped off. I base coated dark red with a little bit of black mixed in. I had intended to start here, and the longer that I worked from there trying it out, I just didn't like that. So I ended up bumping it down and starting a lot lower. It just gave me more room to kind of show off the thing. So I played around. Do we want to do smooth scales? Do we want to do textured scales? I think textured scales just look the best, so we're going to do that. What we want to focus on is thinking of the scale as having more volume than is necessarily represented here. So what I mean by volume is kind of the shape and the darks and the lights. So scales overlap each other, right? So what should happen is that this part right along here and this part right up here should be darker, and then it should be lightest in the middle here, and then kind of fade off. So that's what we're going to try, and I do mean try, to show. So we started off with a super dark brown. Luckily, this technique is super easy. It doesn't really require any special skills. You do want a sharp brush. If I was going to do all the scales on a dragon individually, which is what I normally do, then this is the approach that I would take. All right, so we're going to start off, and we're just going to put down some of all of our colors here. Just get that out of the way. That way, once I start painting, I can just paint. So we got a little bit. This is, where is this? Burnt red. Sure, do that. Bold pyro red. This is like a really bright red from Pro Acryl. Like I said, you can use any colors you want, though. You can see I was testing stuff earlier. So I always test stuff that I do with videos and stuff to make sure that, you know, theoretically it actually works. Every once in a while, you know, I run into something, I'm like, that did not work like I want, but you know, that's how it actually happens too. So, alrighty. We got our colors down here. What we're going to be doing is just using a series of real short strokes like this to create our volumes, and then we'll kind of glaze over it to blend some stuff. So we're just going to get down in here. I'm not going to thin this at all. If I thin this, we're going to lose a lot of what we want. I'm not going to do all of these right now. I'm just going to pick out 5 or 6 of them and do. And what I want to do is I want to think of this not... I want to think of this in this orientation where this is the bottom where this is the bottom. I'm getting such glare. Let me see if I can turn the brightness up. Maybe that'll help. Okay. Yeah, we'll do that for now. Okay. So we're gonna think of this as the bottom. Let me try to angle this. There we go. This is the bottom and this is the top. So what's gonna happen is we want something just to come like this, and then we're just gonna make a series of strokes. Yeah, I let too much paint dry on my brush there while I was talking to y'all. And all we're looking for here is just lines. Okay, don't try to make things even. You want to go mostly to the top here. Just don't go into the crevices. Leave right there and right there. Don't paint that red. That's not what we want. We're just looking for a series of lines at this point. We're just trying to establish some texture. Okay. So like I said, I'm gonna do just a handful of these. If I wasn't talking and I was just cracking down and focusing here, you can knock this technique out because it doesn't require you to be super precise for very much of it at all, which is always good. What's interesting is when you're mini painting, the less stuff that you have to do that you have to be precise in, the better. All right, so you can see, let me see if I can get that to zoom there, or focus there rather. Can I? There we go. That'll work. So yeah, so you can see we've just created a little bit of texture. Okay, and then we're gonna move on to our next one. You don't want to take in a technique where we're trying to create texture, you don't want to do too many intermediate steps, or it will just come out totally smooth, and then what was the point of making texture? Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to focus, we're going to come in the middle here still. I'm just going to go ahead and do that on each one to remind me that we want the middle. Okay, and then we're going to do just a little bit less than we did before. Okay, I really should have made that middle stripe a little thinner, but you know, that's okay. Partially this is painting on camera, guys, which is just not super easy to do. So mad respect to all the people out there that paint every day on camera. Like, that's just hard. It just is. Okay, so all we're doing right now is trying to do that. All right, so you can see what we've done is we've created, see those scales there? Yeah. Okay, then we're just gonna work it down. This is gonna look kind of ridiculous, and then as soon as we glaze it, it's all gonna be magic at the end. Because whenever you glaze something, you reduce the contrast. So we're gonna bump the contrast way up and then knock it down so that we still get a lot of the texture, but we lose some of the ridiculous contrast, the just absolutely insane that we do. Okay. So like I said, we're just making little strokes here. See? We're just doing, and we're just covering a little bit less every time. Okay. When we get down to these next one is where we're really not gonna try to cover too much. Okay. Okay, so we got down to yellow now. And all we're really going to do is add a little bit in the center here. We need to make sure that that's our, this is where you want to make sure though that you got a brush with a nice tip. A little bit in the center of each one, because we're trying to indicate that the center is the high point here. that there's volume and definition here. Okay. And then a little more, and then we're just gonna dot like right along the edge here. Okay. Having to do this on camera is significantly harder. Alrighty. Like I said, nothing we've done here so far is hard. You know, we haven't done anything difficult. Okay. You know, and if you wanted super striking, like a fire dragon, you could even stop there. And it would look really cool if you did that for all the scales, but it's pretty stark. Like, it's pretty bold, right? So we're gonna take a little bit of our white here though, mix in a little yellow, make a super light yellow. And then all we're gonna do is we're gonna come, and I've gotta rotate a little bit, and we're gonna edge highlight these just along the edge here. We gotta be really careful. These are pretty shallow figures here. Okay. So we're doing this because what we want is we want each scale to be distinct from the other, so that when we look at them as a group, they don't just all kind of wash into one another, and kind of go away, right? So that's not what we want. Okay. So you can see we've already got a nice little effect there. Okay, and then we're just going to take one dot of this. We're just going to dot right at the tip there with that. Okay. So if you do this for everything, it really doesn't take that long. It's just taking a little longer. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this red here. Let me move some stuff around here. Hold on. Okay, we're going to take that red here. We're going to mix in some water, and we're going to make a glaze. Okay. There's a video up on glazing if you don't know what glazing is. And you can see I just mixed a bunch of water until I kind of get it the strength. Then I'm going to let it flood off onto a paper towel so that I have control of it. If you don't do that step, it just goes everywhere. And then all we're going to do for this particular glaze is we're going to drag from the shadows down in here, and I probably made that just a little too weak. Okay, so let's try it here. Okay. Okay. Can you see that? Yeah. So now we shifted everything to be more red, because this is supposed to be a red dragon, not necessarily a fire dragon. Okay. So we're going to do that one more time here. Okay, so now what we've got is we've got all this texture on those scales. Okay. And it looks nice. Like an entire dragon full of that is going to look just sexy. Okay. Now, if we really want to bump this up and we really want to make sure that everything is nice and distinct. Sorry I keep bumping the table, guys. That's making the camera shake a little bit. It's a new chair and it's at a little different height than my old chair was. So I need to adjust it probably. So that's a little bit of black ink, and we're just going to outline, we're just going to run this right along the inside of these, because it's just going to make it absolutely pop, especially with that little bit of edge highlighting we did earlier. All right. So now look at that. So we got 4 really cool looking scales. All right. So what I would do is I would do all of every scale like that and not worry too much about the whether it's on top or whatever bottom, and then right, only 1,000 more to go. You'd be surprised. I could probably do like this whole section of this in an hour, maybe an hour and a half, something like that. You just get in a rhythm, you just knock it out, you're going. It's really not as bad as you think. And the result when you're done just looks amazing. So I'd probably do all of them like that, and then come back with an airbrush afterwards and shade with some transparents. Just throw a little bit down here to kind of give those scales the shadow and stuff like that, and just use the airbrush to kind of darken where I wanted to create some more of the overall volumes. That way we've got consistent scales, but then we've also got some overall volumes. So that's how I would do the scales, and it's really pretty easy to do. You can tell there wasn't really any special techniques there. It's just a lot of little lines, okay? And it looks pretty cool. We're gonna do a wing here. We're gonna do a section of a wing here. We're gonna do this totally and completely different. If you've seen the video I did on the cape, it's actually a little bit like that, where we did a leather cape. I'm going to use a paper plate for this because you don't want to thin your paint down for this. It'll make it actually harder. So what we're going to do is, and what you also need here is you need some makeup brushes. If you do this technique with this kind of brush, it just, right? Doesn't it look sweet? If you do this technique we're about to do, it just doesn't work with a round brush at all. It doesn't work. Makeup brushes are really good for blending large areas together, because guess what? That's what they're made for, is literally blending large areas together. For this, you can use any paints you've got. I like to use the P3 paints for this. They're a little thicker. And we don't want super thin. If all you've got is really thin paint, you can make this work. It's just a little bit harder. Okay. So to save time, I went ahead and I put down a coat of our darkest, which is an umbral umber. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to start stippling in with our makeup brushes the other colors, and we're just going to use those colors to kind of define the volumes of the thing, add a little bit of texture. You're going to see this is really fast and like stupid easy. So we're gonna, all right, so I took some of the Battlefield Brown. We're not gonna see a lot of change from that. You'll notice I'm getting most of this off. We're not quite going to a dry brush texture, and we're not dry brushing, we're stabbing, to be honest. Like, kill this wing, kill it dead. And we're just gonna stab all over it, but we're trying to leave the darkest part here, okay? So, and all we did is that right there. That's it. That's all we're doing for that color. We're gonna take a little bit of this blue, just a little bit, and we're gonna mix it in with some of that. And all we're trying to do right now is create visual interest, because when a big area like this is just one solid smooth blend, it just looks dumb. So now all we're doing is we're just taking this and we're just gonna stab it somewhat randomly and create a little bit. It's not gonna be real obvious. You can see some of the blues there. That's all we're doing, okay? Then what we do is we're gonna step this up, and we're gonna add in, I thought I had a lighter brown, but I guess not. That's okay. We'll just mix some of this. Okay, so we're gonna do some of this, was this ochre, moldy ochre, and the brown here. This is one where you don't want to do super fine steps, but you don't want to do too stark. You can't go too stark. Notice I'm not rinsing my brush here, really. If you rinse your brush out for doing this a lot, it just makes it a lot harder, because you're blending some of this in the brush. And then again, all we're doing here is we're just stabbing. We're trying to create texture, but this time we're staying a little more towards the middle, okay? And remember, this is what these brushes are made for, is blending large areas. So there's kind of a stroke motion with it if you want to. We're going to get a little bit more. We're going to mix a little bit more in here. It's drying on here really fast, which is good. We don't want this paint wet, okay? We're just stabbing, okay? And you can see we're going to kind of start to pick up some of these lines a little bit, you know? Okay. And then if you've seen the new Artist Opus Series D brushes, they show this kind of stuff a lot. This is not a technique they invented at all. Like, I got no problem with them doing it, but it's people have been doing this for a long time. So all we're trying to do right now is just step it up a little brighter and brighter. And we're just using this makeup brush to do this. So we're gonna throw some of the rucksack tan in there. You got your Artist Opus D brushes. I have not tried them. They're just kind of more than I want to spend on a brush right now, but they certainly look good. So, and then we're just gonna keep, all we're doing is we're just building up here. I might have gone a little too light too fast. For some reason, I didn't have the browns that I thought I had out. And I wasn't gonna go searching for them. So we're trying to create where it's mostly in here. We're gonna tone this down and blend this edge here in a minute because it's getting a little too stark for me. That's not a big deal though. All right, at this point, we're just gonna take some of this right here. That was the rucksack tan, okay? And we're just gonna stab this. Remember, we're going for a little bit of texture here. Super smooth things are also super boring, okay? All right, so you can see we're creating this. We're gonna bring a little lighter color in because I think we're gonna go a different way with this too by the time I'm done, I think. We're gonna end up doing something similar like we did last time where we kind of tie everything together, okay, with a glaze. I like glazes a lot. So you can see I'm just making a real light color now because we're gonna put that on the top here, okay? And then we're just gonna use this to kind of catch some of these edges. There we go. See, we're just catching those just a little bit. Okay, and now what we want to do is stay focused here on just this top part here. Okay. Starting to come together, isn't it? Okay. And you can see this is really very easy what we've done so far, right? So absolutely nothing. We're gonna go lighter again here. Okay. Nothing's hard, guys. Remember, at the end of the day, this is just paint. Like, if you screw up on this, let's say you try this, you hate the way that it looks, or you hate what I'm doing right now, and you're like, that's dumb. It's just paint. Like, try something different. Go out on your own. Like, I've learned from a lot of people, but I've also just done a lot on my own where I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try something interesting. All right, so we've brought this up, but we've gone a lot higher than I wanted to. But you can see we got a lot of texture in that wing. We've managed to show the stretch marks on the side. It's probably a little too dark on the edge, and really the overall wing is a little bit lighter than I'd like. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this transparent brown here. Ooh, no, never mind. I know what we're going to do. I changed my mind. Here we go. Chestnut ink. Okay, inks are somewhat transparent. So when we put this over, we're not going to put this on the, we're going to put this back on the wet palette, because otherwise that'll just soak right into there in no time. So what's going to happen? All right, we're done with this brush for the moment. I'm going to put this in some water. If we use this ink over here, we need to thin it way down. It's super strong. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a glaze to kind of tonally shift the whole thing and tie it back together. So what we're going to do, we're just going to kind of evenly brush this on. And you can see, look at the beautiful color that's coming out of that. Look at that. Yeah. All right, so that's going to take a minute to dry. All right, and then the other thing is I like to throw some more interesting colors in the shadows here. Like this just being brown, like super boring to me, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So we're going to take a little bit of purple wash. If you've got just purple paint, you can make just a little bit. The deal is here, we're not just going to spread that evenly over. We don't want to do that. Very rarely, if ever, do I use a wash just as a wash, but I tend to use washes as what I call recessed glazes, where really the only thing that you're trying to do is get it down in the recess, okay, as opposed to a normal glaze where you're trying to do it evenly. Okay, if you use a normal kind of glaze and you're just trying to go in the recess, then odds are it's gonna go a lot of places it's not wanted. But if you use something that's already made to go just in the recesses, like a wash, then it's gonna flow more naturally where you want it. And all we're gonna do is come and just add a little bit more interest down into these shadows here. Yeah, there we go. And then this wing, we're going to add a little bit more right here. And this is just kind of tinting it purple a little bit. Add some here. Okay. So you can see we did that wing in no time. If we want it to be a little darker, which I think I do. I think I want it to be a little darker. We can come back and we can glaze some more of that in. Okay. So we can play around with this. We've also got the transparent colors that kind of have the same effect. Okay. All right, guys, so that's an easy wing, okay, that looks pretty good for the amount of time we spent on it and didn't require really anything more than just stabbing at the dang thing for a while. You guys got any questions? This was not going to be a long one. Questions, comments? I would probably, by the time I was done with this, take in the very, very deepest recesses of this wing, where it meets, and do something like a really dark purple or something like that. And just kind of, making sure I can see. Just put that line there, there. We're just adding this in just to make sure that we have really clear, distinct separation between things. Because really your mini should be distinct and separate. All right. That's how I would do a wing. Questions, comments? You think it sucks? Why are you watching this? Anything? Bueller? 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 All right, guys. That's going to be it. All right. So, piece of cake on dragons. Dragons are not hard. They're just tedious because they're huge. That's the reality. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.